Boppity 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 boppity. Oh wait, the engine's not even running. Phooey.
Well, that was supposed to be an epic start to my video where I started up my Bel Air and backed it out of the garage down to the house so I could work on it. The battery was dead. So it started out as an epic video introduction, turned into a cheesy one, and now I gotta go haul the battery charger out of the basement, plug the battery in to get the car running so I can start this video. Great. Grand.
I really apologize for not having music in here. The last time I had downloaded a royalty-free song, I got dinged with a copyright hit on my account. So here I am taking the filler neck off of my fuel cell, and the reason was I wanted to change the fitting on there, but the problem was I still had about a third of a tank of gas and it was over the level of the fitting. Then I started working on the seat brackets for my car and the steering column.
Well, I got some progress done. This is my steering column, and I had to make this nice bracket so I could bolt it onto the firewall. And I made another support piece that bolts through those bottom two holes and goes across the bottom of the firewall to stiffen up where the clutch goes and everything. And I got this little lock collar on here so the shaft doesn't slide down through the bottom anymore. I welded the U-joint onto the steering shaft and plug welded the hole that I had a set screw in. So this steering column is ready to go back in the car. And after I get the steering column in, so it bolts in those 4 bolts right there, it bolts onto, and then there's 5 bolts on the bottom. I made this piece of angle iron to bolt in on those bottom 5 bolts to stiffen up the whole firewall back there, because my clutch assembly and everything, I put it on a steel plate, but the whole thing kind of flexes. So this will stiffen everything up down there and get my steering column back together.
So here I am bolting the steering column in. Underneath there is still the original U-bolt that holds it up onto the dash at the front of it. And then that plate that I welded onto the steering column down at the firewall will stop the whole column from spinning as I turn the wheel back and forth. And of course, you can't have a gasser without having a blue sparkly steering wheel, or a sparkly steering wheel of any kind for that matter. Has to somewhat match the car. I also wanted to get the seats back in the car today, so I started looking at the brackets that I had, and this is simply just unistrut, and I'd originally bolted it to the floor and then welded the bottom piece to the floor. I was going to bolt the 2 pieces together, but I figured it would be easier just to weld them in place and weld nuts on the top of them so I can put the seat bracket all the way across and just screw it right down to those units. This, in the end, ended up being very sturdy and much better than what I had originally tried doing. Here I'm sliding the seats back in the car and bolting them down in place. Again, that unistrut is really handy when you're trying to put seats in. I'm still working on how to get the emergency brake working, but that's pretty easy.
Well, I have got a whole bunch of stuff done that I wanted to get done today. Even though the time lapse doesn't really show that I did a whole heck of a lot, but didn't show the whole time that I made the bracket for the steering or anything like that. Just showed me like bolting some stuff in place and welding some stuff. But what I needed to do today was get my steering column mounted, and I'll go show you over there how that looks. So I got my steering column all mounted. There's the plate I was showing you earlier up here. There's 4 bolts holding that to the body, and then that piece of angle iron on the bottom I put in there just to stiffen everything, because this is my clutch right here, and the piece of metal that I mounted that to, even still, you can't really tell, but everything over there flexes, and I got to do something a little bit better with this. I need to put a spacer on here for my clutch, and then a spacer on this side, and then put a nut on there so all this stuff doesn't move around.
I was actually having some trouble between my clutch pedal and the master cylinder. The linkage that I built is not really in a very straight line, so when it pushes on the master cylinder, it does some wonky stuff, and I actually pulled the end of the master cylinder out. So I actually purchased a new master cylinder and a new clutch rod, and I'm going to try to make it better before I take this thing out and drive it, because as you see later on in the video, when I was trying to drive it, I had a lot of issues trying to get it in gear and declutch.
And I want to cut the bottom of the clutch arm off. I have another one of these pads So I'm going to weld a 1/2-inch nut on this thing and then screw another one of these pads on there so at least the clutch and the brake will match. And the shifter right now is way too far forward. So this shifter came out of a 57 Bel Air with a bench seat, and you had to really lean forward to use it. So this is my shifter situation. This is the Hurst one for the 57 Bel Air. This is the ITM shifter, and you know, I probably would have used this. This came out of a Chevelle. I think it's an original factory one. You pull it up and push it forward to put it in reverse, and then otherwise it's just a standard H pattern. But it's so sloppy. Like, I could hardly find the gears using this shifter. I mean, it's out of a 1969 Chevelle. It's probably got 150,000 miles on it, and I think you can rebuild these, but I'm not so sure I really want to. So that's why I got the Hurst one. But this handle obviously doesn't work. So I mean, I could use the ITM handle, which still doesn't put it close enough to me. It's like reaching way down towards the floor to shift it. Then I have this long shifter that I bought a year or so ago, but somebody had cut it and welded it on an angle. And if I use this shifter, it's the same thing. It's going to be so far away from where I want it. What I really want is the shifter to be kind of up here, like a NASCAR style shifter. So what I might have to do is, I don't know, maybe take the 57 shifter and cut it right here and extend it by about 3 inches and then weld it on over here. You know, cut this section off here, cut it down here, extend it 3 or 4 inches, and then weld it back on here so it comes up and back. I really want it, like, you know, right next to the steering wheel when I'm shifting, so I don't have to reach for it. But nobody really made a shifter for a Muncie or a Saginaw to go in a 53 Bel Air to work properly, so I kind of have to make something work just like every other piece of this car. But the steering is good now. The only thing I noticed, the universal joint where I welded the steering shaft on, it drags a little bit, so it's a little bit chunky. So I got to hit that with the grinder just a skosh to make that work a little bit better. Otherwise, the steering's not too bad in this thing usually. I mean, it's a big 15-inch steering wheel, so it's pretty good to steer. Yeah, so the shifter, I'm still thinking about that. I don't know what to do. I mean, I could just put a long extension on here and use it the way it is, but I don't want it to be that cheesy. I want it to come up, you know, up straight out and back like this one, but it just needs to be a lot longer. Like maybe if I just extended this guy, yeah, I might even be able to do that. Just put like a 6 or 7 inch long extension on the bottom of this thing and then weld it on down there. That might work. I don't know, I gotta look at it. Never a good sign when you start your hot rod up and acorns come out of the exhaust. Idling a little on the low side, but been sitting a while and the gas is really old. Can't kill a 305. Well, you can.
You can hear me grind the gears here a couple times again because the clutch master cylinder was not allowing the clutch to disengage just because of the alignment of my linkage, which is why I purchased a new master cylinder with new linkage. It was very cheap and I'm going to try to fix it this time.
Well, that surely didn't go as planned. The clutch is extremely finicky. The little rod that I put together kept falling apart, or at least, you know, slipping on the bracketry that I made, and what was happening was the clutch wasn't engaging, so it was grinding in reverse, wouldn't go into first gear. So that's definitely something that's going to have to be addressed. Also might be because that shifter is partially a little out of adjustment. I still haven't gotten it perfect, but it's tough to get it perfect when you never drive the thing, and you know, I'm always doing mechanical stuff on it. I haven't had a chance to really get a time to tune it. So, but I was able to drive it a little bit more. Always makes you happy when you can drive your project car. Keep strong. Thanks for watching Cranky Motorsports. Have a great weekend. God bless America.